Hi y'all, Indy here. Let's journey back to the mid-20th century. World War II had just ended and societies were rebuilding. Women, despite their contributions during the war, were largely expected to return to domesticity. This was the world into which Simone de Beauvoir, a French philosopher and writer, would launch a groundbreaking work that would challenge these norms and ignite a feminist revolution. Simone de Beauvoir was no stranger to challenging conventions. Born in Paris in 1908, she excelled in her studies, becoming one of the few women to receive a degree in philosophy from the Sorbonne. There, she met Jean-Paul Sartre, a fellow philosopher, and the two formed a lifelong intellectual partnership. De Beauvoir's philosophical outlook was deeply influenced by existentialism, emphasizing individual freedom and responsibility. Her work was characterized by its accessibility, clarity of thought, and unwavering commitment to social justice. The Second Sex was a monumental achievement, spanning over 700 pages and covering a vast range of topics. De Beauvoir drew upon her extensive knowledge to weave together a comprehensive analysis of women's place in society. The book's publication was a watershed moment, not just in feminist thought, but in intellectual history as a whole. It was praised for its intellectual rigor and passionate advocacy for women's liberation. However, it was also criticized by some for its perceived radicalism and frank discussions of sexuality. At the heart of The Second Sex lies a profound observation. Woman is not defined in her own right, but rather in relation to man. This othering of women, de Beauvoir argues, is a product of social conditioning and cultural norms. From childhood, girls and boys are bombarded with messages about gender roles. These messages become internalized, shaping our behaviors and sense of self. De Beauvoir challenges the notion of an essential feminine nature, arguing that feminine traits are the result of patriarchal conditioning. By exposing the constructed nature of gender roles, de Beauvoir opens up the possibility for change. If femininity is a social artifact, then it can be challenged, redefined, and transcended. To understand the origins of women's oppression, de Beauvoir examines how women have been relegated to the margins of society throughout history. From ancient civilizations to the modern era, she traces the roots of patriarchy. De Beauvoir argues that women's historical role as mothers and homemakers has been used to justify their exclusion from the public sphere. Confined to the domestic realm, women have been denied access to education, economic opportunities, and political power. However, she also highlights moments of resistance and rebellion, pointing to courageous women who have challenged the status quo. De Beauvoir argues that women's oppression is maintained through a pervasive system of representation she terms the male gaze. This gaze reduces women to objects of male desire, shaping their sense of self and worth. De Beauvoir challenges women to reject the male gaze and reclaim their own narratives. She urges women to define their own beauty, sexuality, and worth. By dismantling the male gaze, de Beauvoir paves the way for a more authentic and empowering representation of women in society. One of de Beauvoir's most enduring arguments is her assertion that one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. She dismantles the notion that biology is destiny, arguing that society assigns meaning to biological differences. From childhood, we are bombarded with messages about gender roles, shaping our beliefs and aspirations. By challenging the notion of a fixed female nature, de Beauvoir opens up a world of possibilities for both women and men. If gender is not predetermined, it becomes a realm of freedom where we can choose who we want to be. The concept of the other is central to Simone de Beauvoir's analysis of women's oppression. Historically, men have positioned themselves as the self, relegating women to the realm of the other. This dynamic is deeply embedded in Western thought and culture. This othering strips women of their agency and individuality. De Beauvoir's analysis provides a framework for understanding various forms of oppression. It reveals how power operates to create and maintain hierarchies through cultural norms and practices. De Beauvoir argues that the concept of woman is a social construction, a myth designed to confine women to designated roles. She dissects stereotypes like the eternal feminine and the mystique of motherhood, revealing them as tools of patriarchal oppression. These myths limit women's aspirations and justify their exclusion from power. De Beauvoir challenges these narratives, arguing that women are capable of the same intellectual rigor and ambition as men. By dismantling these myths, de Beauvoir opens up a space for women to embrace their full potential. De Beauvoir vividly portrays the lived experience of being treated as the other. She explores the ways women are made to feel like outsiders, their voices silenced and experiences dismissed. She writes of the pressure to conform to societal expectations and the double standards women face. De Beauvoir's work resonated deeply with women, providing validation and a sense of solidarity. By giving voice to the lived experience of otherness, de Beauvoir helped ignite a movement for a more just and equitable world. De Beauvoir's analysis of the other is a call to action. She challenges women to reject limitations, embrace their freedom, and create their own meaning. She emphasizes education, economic independence, and political engagement as tools for liberation. True liberation requires a shift in consciousness, rejecting internalized sexism and embracing agency. De Beauvoir calls upon women to become the subjects of their own lives, the authors of their own stories. The concept of the other remains a powerful tool for understanding oppression in the 21st century. De Beauvoir's work continues to inspire activists and scholars to examine power dynamics. Her ideas have influenced fields like gender studies, queer theory, and post-colonial studies. While progress has been made, de Beauvoir's work reminds us that the struggle for gender equality is ongoing. Her analysis urges us to challenge systemic inequalities and create a more just world. The second sex landed like an intellectual bombshell, igniting debate and challenging traditional gender roles. De Beauvoir's work resonated with a generation of women confined by societal expectations. The second sex became a cornerstone of the second wave feminist movement in the 1960s. This wave tackled issues like reproductive rights, equal pay, and workplace discrimination. De Beauvoir's ideas influenced feminist thinkers like Betty Friedan, Gloria Steinem, and Bell Hooks, providing a framework for challenging the status quo. De Beauvoir's influence on feminist collective action. De Beauvoir emphasized the importance of collective action. She argued that true liberation required a collective effort. This message resonated deeply with second-wave feminists. They formed groups, organized protests, and established organizations. The second sex provided a shared language and goals. De Beauvoir's influence was seen in groups like NOW and the Women's Liberation Movement. These movements brought significant legal and social changes. Reclaiming the narrative. The personal is political. One of the most enduring legacies of second-wave feminism, heavily influenced by de Beauvoir's work, was the recognition that the personal is political. De Beauvoir argued that women's experiences, their relationships, their bodies, their roles in the family, were not separate from the political realm, but were deeply intertwined with the structures of power that shaped their lives. This insight was revolutionary. It gave women permission to speak openly about issues that had long been considered taboo or irrelevant to the public sphere, such as domestic violence, reproductive rights, and sexual harassment. By bringing these issues out of the shadows and into the light of day, feminists were able to challenge the societal norms that kept women silent and to demand recognition for their experiences. De Beauvoir's own willingness to tackle controversial subjects in the second sex, particularly her frank discussions of sexuality, helped to pave the way for this shift in consciousness. She refused to shy away from the complexities of women's lives, acknowledging the ways in which patriarchy sought to control not only women's bodies, but also their desires, their pleasures, and their very sense of self. By encouraging women to speak their truths, to share their stories, and to connect their personal experiences to the larger political landscape, de Beauvoir helped to spark a revolution in consciousness that continues to shape feminist thought and activism today. Beyond the binary, expanding the scope of feminist thought. While de Beauvoir's primary focus in the second sex was on the experiences of cisgender women, her work inadvertently laid the groundwork for later feminist thinkers to challenge the very notion of a rigid gender binary. Her assertion that one is not born, but rather becomes, a woman, while initially aimed at dismantling biological determinism, also opened up space to question the assumption that gender identity is fixed and immutable. Her analysis of the ways in which society constructs and enforces gender roles, often through subtle and pervasive means, provided a framework for understanding how these same mechanisms could be used to police and constrain other forms of gender expression that fell outside the traditional male-female dichotomy. Though de Beauvoir herself did not fully explore the nuances of transgender identities, her work provided fertile ground for later generations of feminists and queer theorists to challenge the gender binary, to advocate for the rights of transgender and gender nonconforming individuals, and to envision a world where gender is fluid, multifaceted, and self-determined. This expansion of feminist thought beyond the limitations of a rigid gender binary is a testament to the enduring power of de Beauvoir's work to inspire critical thinking, challenge assumptions, and pave the way for a more inclusive and just future. A legacy of liberation. De Beauvoir's enduring impact on the feminist movement. More than 70 years after its initial publication, The Second Sex remains a cornerstone of feminist thought, its insights as relevant and as challenging as ever. De Beauvoir's work continues to inspire generations of feminists, providing them with the intellectual tools, the historical context, and the unwavering belief in the possibility of a more just and equitable world. Her legacy is evident in the ongoing fight for reproductive rights, equal pay, and an end to gender-based violence. It's present in the growing recognition of transgender rights, the dismantling of harmful stereotypes, and the push for greater representation of women in all spheres of life. De Beauvoir's work reminds us that the fight for gender equality is not a destination, but a journey, a continuous process of questioning, challenging, and dismantling the systems of power that seek to limit human potential based on gender. Her voice, courageous and unwavering, continues to echo through the decades, urging us to embrace our freedom, to claim our power, and to create a world where everyone, regardless of gender, can thrive. A timeless critique. The enduring relevance of The Second Sex. Decades after its publication, The Second Sex remains strikingly relevant. De Beauvoir's analysis of women's lived experiences, of the subtle ways societal norms limit their aspirations, still resonates deeply. The questions she raised about equality, freedom, and the very meaning of womanhood continue to fuel debates and inspire new generations of feminists. While significant progress has been made in women's rights, many of the challenges de Beauvoir identified persist. The gender pay gap persists. Women remain underrepresented in leadership positions across various sectors. Violence against women, often fueled by deeply entrenched patriarchal attitudes, remains a global epidemic. De Beauvoir's work reminds us that the fight for gender equality is an ongoing process, requiring constant vigilance and a willingness to challenge the status quo. Her critique of societal structures, cultural norms, and even language itself provides a framework for understanding the complexities of gender inequality in the 21st century. Her insights are particularly poignant in the age of social media, where idealized images of femininity and success often mask the very real struggles faced by women navigating a world still grappling with gender bias. The Second Sex serves as a powerful antidote to these superficial representations, urging us to look deeper, to question assumptions, and to demand better. Navigating the third and fourth waves, de Beauvoir's evolving legacy. De Beauvoir's legacy extends far beyond the second wave of feminism. Her work has proven remarkably adaptable, providing a foundation for subsequent waves of feminist thought and activism. Third wave feminism, emerging in the 1990s, embraced greater diversity and challenged the notion of a singular feminist experience, recognizing the intersections of gender with race, class, sexuality, and other identities. De Beauvoir's emphasis on individual experience and her critique of societal constraints resonated with this wave's focus on personal narratives and reclaiming the power to define one's own identity. Her work provided a framework for understanding how interlocking systems of oppression impact individuals and communities in different ways. The fourth wave, largely fueled by online activism and social media, has brought renewed attention to issues like sexual assault, harassment, and online misogyny. De Beauvoir's analysis of the male gaze, of the ways women are often reduced to objects in a patriarchal society, finds new resonance in the digital age, where these dynamics often play out in disturbing and pervasive ways. Her work serves as a reminder that technology, while a powerful tool for connection and mobilization, can also be used to reinforce harmful power structures and perpetuate gender-based violence. Unfinished business. Challenges in a post-MeToo world. The MeToo movement, while a watershed moment in bringing attention to the pervasiveness of sexual harassment and assault, also exposed the limitations of progress. De Beauvoir's work reminds us that true equality requires more than just legal reforms or even a shift in public awareness. It necessitates a fundamental restructuring of power dynamics, a dismantling of the patriarchal structures that continue to privilege certain voices and experiences over others. De Beauvoir's critique of the male gaze, of the ways women are often objectified and silenced, remains painfully relevant in a world where women's voices are still often dismissed or discredited. The backlash against the MeToo movement, often fueled by attempts to silence survivors and discredit their experiences, underscores the deeply entrenched nature of patriarchal attitudes and the ongoing need for vigilance and activism. De Beauvoir's work challenges us to move beyond superficial solutions and to address the root causes of gender inequality. It encourages us to question assumptions, to challenge power structures, and to create a world where all individuals are valued, respected, and empowered to reach their full potential. Her legacy serves as a powerful reminder that the fight for gender equality is far from over and that true liberation requires ongoing commitment, collective action, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. De Beauvoir's call to action for a new generation. De Beauvoir's work is a living document, urging future generations to create a just and equitable world. Her emphasis on individual agency and self-determination resonates with young people challenging traditional gender roles. Her work encourages us to embrace the complexities of gender identity and create a world where everyone can live authentically. De Beauvoir's legacy reminds us that the fight for gender equality benefits everyone and requires constant vigilance and critical thinking. Simone de Beauvoir, a legacy of challenging norms. Simone de Beauvoir's legacy is one of intellectual courage and a profound belief in human agency. She dared to challenge societal norms and give voice to marginalized experiences. The second sex ignited social change, inspiring generations for a more just world. Her impact extends beyond academia, influencing art, literature, and culture. Her words empowered individuals to question societal expectations and embrace their identities. The enduring power of the second sex, a catalyst for change. The second sex remains a cornerstone of feminist thought, resonating with readers today. De Beauvoir's analysis of gender provides a framework for understanding gender inequality. Her work reminds us that the fight for gender equality is ongoing. The issues she grappled with remain tragically relevant. The Second Sex is a call to action, challenging societal expectations. De Beauvoir's words inspire new waves of activism and social change.